Well, we're here in person down at the Illinois Republican Convention to tape this week's episode of the Smoke-Filled Room. There's a lot of excitement already. The convention, I think, officially starts tomorrow. We're not even officially in the convention, and yet there's already a ton of people here. The parking lot is full. This is a pretty good sign for Republicans, I think, this year. We are in person for a whole lot of functions over the next couple days, but of course, our weekly SFR. Those of you who are with us every week, this is episode 54 of this podcast, if you believe it. And we've got some pretty special guests with us this week, coming to us with inside track on what's happening in the Republican Party and why Republicans should be optimistic in 2024. So we got to start with Rhonda. If you've watched SFR, you've seen her, you've heard her. She is one of the queens of SFR, I have to say at this point. She's the president of the Republican County Chairmen's Association, also the chairman of the Hardin County Republican Central Committee, the RCCA president, and a bunch of other things. Rhonda, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here with you. Great to be in the courtyard here. The smoke is rolling. And you know, that's supposed to be a good sign. You know, we're sending smoke signals here, getting ready for the convention here. And it's great to have it further south this time.
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't have to drive so far, but I still had to drive the farthest. There's still a lot farther south to go, so a lot of folks don't recognize that.
There's a lot of people here. We'll talk about the convention next. There's a lot of people here who are learning how big Illinois is.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about that. Also, Rhonda's husband is the happiest person here.
Yeah, he got a cigar.
'Cause she doesn't let him have cigars, apparently, so I gave him one of mine. He's pretty happy.
Well, yeah, so. No, he gets one when he wants. I think he sneaks more than, you know. but he's living it up, living the dream today.
All right, we also have Myles Nelson with us today. He's a state central committeeman for the Republican Party, also campaign director for the victorious Congressman Mike Bost, who will be here, I believe, this for the convention.
Yeah,
right?
tomorrow evening. Yep.
So we got a chance to see Bost here today. Myles, glad to have you.
Welcome to Collinsville. It's my hometown, and you know, when I got appointed to the State Central Committee, I wanted to give Central and Southern Illinois a voice, and working with a lot of great people like Rhonda and our county chairman down here, I'm thrilled to have the convention in my hometown. So welcome to the 13th Congressional District.
Well, you guys are excellent hosts. We've already had a great time. Rhonda said she drove short. I had a 5-hour drive here, so we'll be not friends for a little while I recover from the drive. We also have with us John McLean. He's also a Deputy Central Committee member, member of the RCCA, the Monroe County Clerk. Really glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's good to be here. And also, I've been a precinct committeeman from St. Clair County since 2002. And the former St. Clair County Republican Party chairman from 2009 to 2013, and then elected county clerk in Monroe County in 2018.
Now you've, like Rhonda, got a lot of hats, but I love especially the PC role. I mean, all of us, I think, at least have been or are precinct committeemen or precinct captains up in Cook County, which is where we are. And that's the grassroots aspect of this party. You know, we don't get that. The story's been circulating a little bit lately, thanks to Don Tracy, who's been talking about it, that our party is led by grassroots people. Regular people who care, who aren't getting paid for this. I mean, you guys are paying out of pocket to go to stuff. And by contrast, the Democratic Party is elected. They're state employees who are getting paid by the taxpayers, by Chris's patronage. You know, it's a big contrast in who runs our party versus who runs the Democratic Party.
I try to support precinct committeemen every time I can, because those are the people who are working every day to get Republicans elected, and I don't think they get enough credit for all the work that they do. And then also the other activists too that are working, but to actually run as a precinct committeeman, get your name on the ballot, commit to being a part of your local county organization, it's a really big deal.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate you carrying that message. We also have, of course, political experts. We'll start with Michael, since we are in Butlerville down here in Collinsville. Michael, thanks for hosting us and having us.
Absolutely, glad to have everybody
here. I have to start using your title now. I mean, for me, you're one of our political experts, but you're a Republican County Chairman now.
Yep, St. Clair County, so got to turn it red.
I like it. And we got Chris, who's our resident Eeyore. So as Rhonda and Michael bring the happiness and the ray of sunshine, Chris will bring the storm clouds.
Well, welcome to Southern Illinois, everybody. They couldn't pick Peoria. They couldn't pick anywhere else. We couldn't pick Champaign, Mr. 13th Congressional District. Had to go with Collinsville, Illinois. But, you know, even Southern Illinois gets to have a convention every once in a while. And hopefully come 2028, I either won't be Republican anymore or it'll be in Tinley Park. So we'll see which one happens first.
Yeah, wait till I show you the world's largest ketchup bottle. Then you'll really like it. Just wait. I
love it. Well, Southern Illinois hospitality is excellent. I love coming down here because this is like real America. You get to rural Illinois, you get a chance to meet real people, normal people. I was commenting to Ryan on our team as we were coming down, from up by us, you just get grunts, you get crankiness. Like, you actually talk to people, they'll talk to you. They're nice, they're real humans. It's nice to get out of Chicagoland every once in a while. All right, let's get focused. So this is the convention, and we are here in Southern Illinois hosting the convention here for a reason. Rhonda, I want to start with you. We're here for a reason. It's because Republicans have seen huge gains in this area. Our next agenda topic is going to talk specifically about those gains. But right now, I just want to talk about the convention itself. This is a big deal to have the convention here. It's typically up closer to Chicagoland, and so this is a big deal, joking aside, that we're down here in Southern Illinois. Talk a little bit about why the convention is here, how it happened, and why this is a big deal.
Well, one thing for sure is the big red wins. And we wanted to reward the Republicans for how hard they worked and how red we are in the southern part of the state. And we couldn't have what we have without the folks working so hard, and how many counties have flipped from blue to red all the way up. And we want to continue that and keep that momentum going all the way up the rest of the state. So we want to let them know how we recognize that, and wanted to bring the convention nearer to them and bring it to them instead of them having to trek the rest of the way up the state. Nothing against the rest of the state, because we had great places that we could have had it, and we traveled around as being part of the host committee and chairwoman of the arrangements committee, and of course John serves on that with me as well, and Michael serves on the committee, and Myles does as well. We traveled around and checked out all the locations, and we were under the gun for the specific date that we have, which, good or bad, Memorial Weekend was quite the trick to even pull off, but we have the Cubs and the Cardinals playing just across the river.
That's a pretty cool
and
thing.
That's a pretty cool thing.
And CNC
exactly.
I love going to that stadium. I'm a White Sox fan, so I don't care about the rivalry. You guys could duke it out. But that's a fun stadium to watch a baseball game.
It's a fun stadium, so that's a big draw for families. But the thing about it was, when we got into it and really started planning it, it was hard for us to even get tickets, to even get a room to do a fundraiser, because everybody's going to the game. So it is a big draw, and we are getting a lot of folks that are coming, even though it is Memorial Day weekend. Some said, we've got plans. But guess what? I was getting calls from people in the Chicagoland area. Hey, Rhonda, we're coming down.
Nice.
Because, people, while they might have grumbled at the start, we got to drive down to Southern Illinois. Oh, no. They want to come. Yep. And we were making it where they could bring their families and do other things, making it fun for them to do other things. But the main thing was to reward the southern part of the state for the big red wins that they have had. So,
well, and let's talk about the contrast a little bit. The Democrats don't even host a convention. I mean, at most cycles, and I think this cycle you confirmed, they don't even host a convention. They don't want grassroots part of their party. And it's messy. I'm sure there'll be messiness over the next couple of days. But that's the beauty of, Republicans were about that individual responsibility. We're about people stepping up and sharing their passion. And even just before we started recording, I had a few people come up and, I'm here because I care about this issue and I want to see this done. And that's what builds our party. Yeah, it's messier. It's harder to contain. Poor Don Tracy and you guys in the Central Committee. It's not an easy job. But by contrast, you have the Democrats who are top down. Just do what we tell you and that's it. Shut up. Don't come to a convention. I think it's a big deal that we have people who come here who have their voices heard. And that's a lot different than what the Democrats do.
Absolutely. And we have over 500 people that have already registered, and that's not including the people that are going to come the day of tomorrow and Saturday. So we're thrilled with the turnout.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys have done a great job pulling everything together. I know it's been a lot of work, especially in the middle of an election cycle. Sleep is, not probably in your in your vocabulary right now, but I know that as a father of a 2-month-old, so I get it. No sleep's going to be had before November.
Well, I just wanted to add that we had to open early registration tonight just to accommodate because we are having such a turnout, and we thought we better open up early. And the interesting thing is, we've sold out on our vendor slots. Nice. So that's cool. That's a big thing because we weren't even really sure exactly how this would all work out, but we've sold out on our vendor slots. So it's going to be, as they say, a really big shoe. So
I like
so
it.
we like it.
I can't imagine Michael has no thoughts on this. Go ahead, man.
Well, I think it's great to have it down here. I only had to drive 20 minutes, so that's always good. Right down the road. And like Rhonda said, I mean, we've had a lot of victories in the Metro East and Southern Illinois, and people forget, I think, that there were a lot of counties down here that were represented by Democrats. I mean, I grew up in Hamilton County when I was in high school, which was not very long ago. all our county-wides except one, they were Democrats. We had 2 Democrat state reps, a Democrat state senator. So we're seeing that in counties all over Southern Illinois, and I think we have a thing or two to teach you guys up there, so it's good to have you here.
Well, that's the next topic. Anyone else have comments on the convention before we get into that topic specifically? All right, let's jump into it. So, as Michael kind of foreshadowed, there's a reason the convention is here. Anybody who's been paying attention to politics in Illinois, or heck, if you've watched some of our podcasts, we've talked about it, that there's only a few places in this state. I love our party, but we haven't been doing real good the last decade or two statewide. There's a couple places we've done pretty well. One of those is in the Will County area, the south suburbs area. We've had some gains. And another one of those key areas is in the Metro East. As a matter of fact, the main area we've seen success. That's why the convention is here, is to celebrate that success and hopefully for all of us to learn a bit what's been done, because we had a lot of people, Jason Plummer and others, over the last handful of episodes who have explained this did not happen overnight. Too many people in politics think they're going to go home on a Friday night, write a brilliant plan on their computer, and by next week their county is going to be red. It's a decade plus of work, if not longer, and it's hard work. It's exhausting work and it's thankless work. And you guys have put that work in this area. Talk about it a little bit on why what are we celebrating here? What has happened and how has that happened?
So when I got involved in 2002 in St. Clair County as a precinct committeeman, back then we looked up to DuPage County. They owned all of the offices. They were all Republican, and down here it's all Democratic office holders. And now you look now and you see in Madison County all Republican for the most part. I think there's one Democratic office holder left, a coroner. Monroe County, half just a little over 10 years ago, half of the offices were still held by Democrats. Now they're all held by Republican. And so all that hard work over the last 20 years has paid off here in the Metro East. But another thing that's helped in the Metro East is the divide in the state, the ideological divide, and that's something that is great for us, but it's also bad for us. We're very conservative down here, family values. There's not a whole lot of interest in entertaining some of the issues that maybe up in Chicago Republicans have to bend and have to work with the other side on in order to get elected. So that's creating some dilemmas.
Well, that regional divide is a big deal. When you get out of the Chicago metropolitan area, one of the highest polling narratives we often see is that sort of contrast with Chicago. Do you want Chicago values in our county? Do you want far left progressive principles from Cook County being brought into Madison County, being brought into St. Clair County? That narrative does tend to poll really well because people feel it. There's a reason why there's the whole secession movement going on down here. Not that it's going anywhere, not that I necessarily agree with it, but you understand the frustration with that far left progressive agenda.
That's what has helped us.
By the way, I have to say this: Pritzker's far left progressive agenda.
Correct. Yeah, and a lot of Democrats have left the Democratic Party because of that down here, and they're either now more independent or Republican. I'd say a lot of them have left, and they're now coming to Republican events, and they're not going to Democrat dinners anymore, and that's helped us. But they're conservatives. These are Democrats that were conservatives at heart, and they've seen the Democratic Party in Illinois go left. They're not going left; they're staying. I don't know.
The Democratic Party has left them, not the other way around.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and the amazing thing is we've talked about it a lot, and Chris and I have analyzed a ton of polling data on this, as Democrats go chase the suburban, more progressive women for their votes, because they think that's their path to victory, and we'll talk about that later today. They're losing a lot of their base constituencies, especially you look at turnout amongst black wards and black communities, and which is part of the problem for Democrats in the Metro East area, is turnout amongst black voters is at a record low because they're seeing a party that's gone so far left they can't support that party anymore. Now that's the good news for us. The bad news is we haven't picked up those voters. So we still have work to do, and we need to actually put some work into winning these voters. They've left the Democratic Party, and right now they have no home. So let's go give them a home. But when it comes to electoral outcomes, sort of the biggest reasons that you've seen this shift is just the demographics of, as the Democratic Party gets more and more progressive under J.B. Pritzker and some of the other Chicago leaders, a lot of these voters, especially Hispanics and black voters, are saying, yeah, that's not me.
Well, and you see it from the top down. The radical policies are the same. In Joe Biden's America and J.B. Pritzker's Illinois, there's very few conservative Democrats left, and I don't even know if they're welcomed in the party anymore. And
ask Dan Lipinski if they're welcome in the party.
Yeah, exactly. And that helped us in Madison County. You know, he talked about our countywide races. After this November, every single countywide elected official will be Republican. I don't know if that's ever happened in Madison County.
That's amazing.
Amy Ellick, Erica Harris, Jason Plummer flipped all of those seats, and I think a lot of that you could contribute to the radical policies of the Democrats.
Yeah, you've seen it, and there's some counties up closer to the suburbs, like LaSalle County, I know is going to be well represented here, where they've had a similar turnaround. And I think they'll tell you that some of the leadership in LaSalle County will say it was shoe leather. It's hard work. You know, I think there's too many times we think, you know, just doing a Facebook post or something might change things. And Rhonda will tell you that if you haven't worn out the soles of your shoes, then you're not doing it right. You have to go out and actually talk to the voters. But when you do it, they realize we're not the caricature. You know, my wife was a little bit more left-leaning before meeting me, partially because she was taught that every Republican was Dick Cheney, every Republican was Sarah Palin. You know, the left, because the media is not with us, you know, they're able to push this narrative that we're a bunch of crazy, you know, fire-breathing dragons as Republicans, when the truth couldn't be further from that. And when they meet you, they go, oh, well, maybe most of us, when they meet us, they go, oh, that's a normal person. I could align with that. But that's not what they're taught. So you got to talk to them and put in the work.
So I have another theory too about the Metro East and Madison County being so successful, and that is because of the dedication of guys like Chris Slesser, Patrick McCray, Jason Plummer. There's a few others that I can't, maybe David Michael a little bit. These are guys that have been working at it for a decade or more, and they didn't give up. They kept working and working, and you lost, but you still came back. And Chris Slesser and I, we were talking about back in 2012, I ran for county board chairman, and he ran for county board chairman in Madison County. I ran in St. Clair, and we were just laughing about how, you know, we wish we would have known everything we know today back in 2012. We might have been more successful, but not giving up and staying involved, you know, after our loss in 2012, that helped us. We have matured in our positions, and now I think we're more electable. You know, back then we weren't electable. People could see through the fact that, hey, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. Now we're seen more as seasoned. We understand how government works. So that's a theory that I have is that we need to mature as a party with this new generation of leaders.
I actually want to pass it to Michael on this, because the question is always that I see is, when I started in this party, one day I'll tell some of the stories about just how hard it was to find opportunities. I was the young kid, the young pup who thought he knew everything, and I didn't, but I was passionate and I cared and I wanted my opportunity and I was working hard. But the party, it was almost a full-time job by some of the party leaders in my area to say, get out of here, kid, we don't want you. And the problem is, what we see a lot is that that's what happens, and then most young people don't barrel through that. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm kind of a jackass. So I'm like, okay, you say I can't do this? Good, then I'm going to go do it.
Find a way to do it.
So, like, if you're going to tell me no, I'm going to go do it even harder then. So I fought through that, but how many young people have we watched over the years who, when they're pushed out, they don't get that chance to get that experience. They don't get the chance to gain that opportunity. And the party I see today, leaders like Michael, Myles even, you're not, I mean, we're not that old. And so you're seeing an openness now that is new. I didn't see this a decade and a half ago when I got involved in politics. I love that openness, and let's get people involved, and having a county chairman like Michael who's 14 years old. I mean, this is a new thing for our party, but it's bringing energy and excitement. And you're right, we're going to make mistakes because we're young and we're still figuring this out, but we bring energy and passion, and if you help us, we're going to grow and learn, and we're going to get successful. And I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I think part of it is, like, you know, when I first started, like, it was, and Myles too, that it was just like, hey, we're in the trenches with you. And I think that, you know, we've worked hard. Like, we've been, you know, there have been times where people are like, hey, what are you talking about? You're only like 12, right? But
I said 14. I gave you a couple more years.
Yeah, you gave me a couple more years.
It's the receding hairline that gets you those couple extra years.
Yeah, you've got to just get out and earn it, I think. And if people just come into it with that understanding, you know, that you have to get in there and work hard and knock doors and, you know, build those connections. Really, the sky's the limit.
Well, and listen, I try to avoid saying nice things about Michael and Chris on the record. But if you're just connected with Michael on Facebook, there's nobody that works harder. I mean, we bring this passion into the party. And I got a young guy up by me who I've been trying to help sort of mentor a little bit. And 9 out of 10 of his ideas, I'm like, don't do that. Please don't do that. But he's coming up with 10 ideas. I mean, you get people who've been around for 30, 40 years. Let's be honest, like sometimes they maybe get a little tired. They're just, this is the way we've always done it, but times change. Politics are different today than they were 20 years ago. And so the youth movement in this party is a great thing to see. When I do trainings around the country, it used to be, when I first started doing trainings, it was pretty much 95% just old white dudes. And then about 8 years ago, it became more female than male. Despite the public narrative, it was more female than male in every room that I trained. Now, it's actually almost a 50-50 split between minorities and white people in those training rooms. And there's young people, and there's females, and it's probably 80-20 females in every room I train now. I mean, our party is not the caricature of this old white dude. And we've done a really good job improving in that area. And even just at the convention, you see it. People walking around. This is the party of real America, and it's, you know, no matter how much the left tries to change that narrative, or put their own narrative out there, it's not accurate. And I think we see it just in practice with people like Michael in the party. Chris, go ahead. Just grab the mic, man.
I had the mic, and you made Michael talk. I think the real question, I certainly agree with you, Collin, is that there does seem to be more diversity within the Republican Party's ranks. But I think the question needs to be asked if the Republican Party is only going to look this way, whether or not it's going to act this way. One of the problems that I've had with the Republican Party, frankly speaking, is that the Republican Party presents a different face to voters every year, which is good. It should have a black face, a brown face, a female face, etc. But the policies never change. It never reflects the will of those voters. It never goes to those voters and asks them the questions they care about. So while I agree that there are certainly opportunities for the Republican Party to pick up with minority voters or women voters, I think the Republican Party also needs to go out and ask those voters, what are the policies you want? How can we help you, advance in society? That's something the Democratic Party did at one point. They've moved away from that, obviously, and that's why those voters are coming to the Republican Party. But I think the Republican Party needs to present itself in a different light, because you're right. A lot of people still have this idea that the Republican Party is a party of old white men that advocates for the policies of old white men. And until the Republican Party gets out of that viewpoint, I don't think it's gonna get anywhere.
Well, we've got some data we're going to be sharing at our 2 training sessions tomorrow at the convention. We're giving away, I think we did the math, like 18 grand of polling we're giving away tomorrow. It's ridiculous. And some of that data, it backs up what you're saying, Chris. We are the party of the working class. As a matter of fact, despite what the Democrats try to say, if you look at the data on who votes Republican versus who votes Democrat, it's the rich in the state who vote Democrat, and then it's the people who make the least. The middle class, the working families, they all vote Republican, believe it or not. This is a middle class party. This is a working class, working families party in terms of who we represent, but our messaging does have to catch up. We preach about it a lot on these episodes of getting better at our messaging, our communications. We're seeing signs of improvement, but we definitely got to move that a little bit further along and do it faster.
Well, I think it's kind of like it's a good problem. It's like, I think it's like kind of like growing pains, where Trump brought a lot of new people into the party that, typically weren't voting Republican. A lot of your, blue collar people, unions, that kind of thing. Now we see in polling that we have a lot of opportunities with minorities, African American men under the age of 30, even like some segments of like the Hispanic population. So kind of like Chris said, we have to kind of figure out, okay, well, what are the issues that are important to them? How can we speak to them? That way they understand that, I don't care if you live in East St. Louis or Freeburg, I'm going to go to bat for you every day. Yep. And the Democrats have totally lost that. Yep. And, they're just catering to, this certain segments of their base. And you see that on the national level. You see that locally. Latoya Greenwood, I don't think she's ever left, East St. Louis. She doesn't come to O'Fallon or Freeburg or any of those places. You look at Katie Stewart and some of the bills that she's been voting on. I mean, they're very extreme and way out of line. I know we'll talk about it later, but she was one of the ones that was pushing for, hey, we shouldn't call them criminals offenders. That's offensive. Yeah. So we need to start calling them justice-impacted individuals. And it's like, I would love to see her go and knock doors in Collinsville or, Maryville, Glen Carbon, and say, what do you think about that? Don't you think we should be a little nicer to the criminals? We're giving them a bad rap. Not going to go over well.
Yeah, well, and what you see is Like, even just as an example of this, you mentioned something that Trump did really great for our party, and one of the things that I thought that he brought was bringing working families to the party and helping us understand every message. You've been doing campaigns for a long time. I just noticed it maybe like 4 years ago where the phrase working families finally made it into the Republican lexicon. Before that, it was always just business. It was small businesses. It was very business oriented, very sort of North Shore wealthy. What message would I run if I was running a Mark Kirk campaign, for instance? And we finally, and maybe it was Trump knocking us over the head. It was, hey, talk to the working families out there. That's actually the people who are our base. But it's just finally taken hold in the messaging in our party.
And look no further than Granite City, a blue-collar, working family town. Before President Trump held a rally there with Mike Bost, you couldn't get elected as a Republican there. And his America First policies, talking about working families, I mean, Granite City is totally changed as far as their political makeup goes.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example.
And
just
I was
15
at that
minutes
rally.
north.
I'm telling you, the energy in that steel mill when he came and reopened that resonated all the way down to where I live, because fluorspar, which is our state mineral, that's what was mined in my neck of the woods. And of course, it was a flux, used as a flux, fluorspar, which was mined in my area for years, and that mine
was used as the
closed.
flux capacitor. Is that how we get time travel? Is that what
Well, yeah, I guess that we could say that.
Hiding out.
But it was used as a flux in the making of steel. So I mean, it gave us such hope that maybe some of those mines would reopen at some point. You just have no idea what that did for all of us, and it just gave us all hope.
Well, you're having a good discussion when I don't even have to bring up the next topic. We're already talking about it. That next topic is, what do Republicans need to do statewide, right? Obviously, there's a focus here on Southern Illinois, but November, we got to win everywhere, right? So what do Republicans need to do going into November to win? We've talked about messaging. We've talked about having the right people and working our tails off. What's the narrative you have? Because our viewers are all across the state. So what's that narrative you want to share as people who have seen success in your region? What can we do statewide in the different regions of the state to find success? What do you guys think?
Quality of a candidate matters tremendously. You need to find quality electable candidates. You need to focus on the issues that unite us as conservatives, but can bring or narrow the gap with independents and moderates, and identify the voters, and like you said, wear out those shoes, get to work. But I would say the biggest thing that we have seen lately is our quality of candidates hasn't been what I think it could be.
Yeah, we've had
I
some
absolutely
wins, right? You see the rock stars out there, the Erica Harrises of the world, who come up, we're like, wow, this is a great candidate. Sometimes we luck into it. The Jennifer Santalichas up by us, that they just decide to run. We didn't recruit them. So definitely more work on recruiting those quality candidates. The data shows you can gain 6 points. It's a 6-point swing between a good candidate and a bad candidate just right off the bat. That takes a race from being in play versus not in play just on the quality of the candidate. So you're totally right.
I absolutely agree. I think that's why Monroe County has had so much success, is on the quality candidate. I think, Mike, you spend a lot of time in Monroe and Randolph, and we've recruited a lot of really great people, and they bring a lot of talent to the table. I would also say that issues, it frustrates me when Republican candidates get drawn into discussing issues that are very fringe. We need to stay on message when we're in debates or when we're out talking with people. It's kitchen table issues. People in Monroe County, they don't care about all of these fringe issues that are going on. They care about jobs. They care about infrastructure. They care about when they go to the grocery store. Right now, all the prices of all the goods are going up. That's what they care about. And I just hope that Republicans don't get drawn into all of these side, because Democrats do a great job of doing that to us. They draw the candidates in and make, these Mickey Mouse issues. We need candidates that are disciplined, to stay on message, and to talk about how the Democratic policies have failed, and just keep talking about them. Don't get drawn into transgender. Don't get drawn into abortion. Don't get drawn into some of these other issues that, at the end of the day, voters are really going to vote based on kitchen table issues, and that's where I think we win. all up and down.
Well, and the amazing thing on that is every poll shows us that 7 or 8 of the top 10 issues, voters are with us. So we don't have a problem in our party with the voters agreeing with a lot of our positions. We just let the Democrats paint us. They paint us as extreme, and we let them do it. And sometimes we get stuck in issues just in general. Go talk to somebody. We did a test on this, and we're so busy we haven't been able to roll this out. But we went out and we interviewed hundreds of people, and we said, what matters to you? What keeps you up at night? And I'll tell you what, 2 or 3, I have to ask Ryan from our team, like 2 or 3 out of the over 100 people we talked to brought up an issue. Otherwise, it was, my kid and he's got too much homework, or we can't afford to pay our bills right now. I'm really struggling. My wife doesn't even know, but I don't know how I'm going to pay the mortgage next week. Like, that's what they brought up. It was never issues. Sometimes we get stuck on that, right? We go, here are my 7 issues, and here's my white paper solution, and that's just real people don't think that way, and we can get dragged into that. So whether it's a fringe issue or even a kitchen table issue, it's the issues itself that we can get lost in when everyday people just, they want to survive, they want to thrive, they want to be able to have government off their backs. I mean, there's real world impacts to the things that we face, and we sometimes get stuck a little bit, right? What else we got to do to win?
I also think that, there's those universal issues. You poll it statewide or you poll it regionally, and, you see what people care about and, what they're basing their vote off of. But then you also have to have candidates that kind of understand those local issues and what is, impacting my county or my legislative district. And we can't do this kind of like copy and paste thing where it's like, okay, well, these are the issues we're running on, no matter what district it is or what county you're in. There are some things that are local, and you have to have that as part of your strategy and be able to speak to those.
Yeah, I mean, if Pritzker's closing the prison in your district, that's the top issue in your district, so you can't just copy paste. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have the most prisons in the 12th congressional districts. We have had, and that's been the most jobs that we've had. If you don't work in healthcare or you don't work in the prison system, most of the time you don't work, or you have to travel outside the area to work. So what Michael spoke to earlier about, how you treat the inmates and those types of things, it's really caused a lot of problems in the prison system because they have to tiptoe around, and it's almost like they're living in, a hotel suite now or something like that. You can't even imagine how it's changed in the prison system now, and a lot of those places are closed.
And that's what matters in those communities, right? I think it's a
that
great
is a hot
advice.
topic for us.
Yeah. Well, and you look at the south suburbs and the success that Chris and a lot of his candidates have seen throughout the south suburbs in that region. It's completely different than Lake County or Madison County or anywhere else in the state. You've got to run in your local communities. Take the bigger issues. Cost of living doesn't change. It's always the issue, right? But the cost of living might mean something different. In a suburban community, that might be gas prices or it might be groceries. But in some communities, especially older communities, it's healthcare for them. You've got to be able to be nimble enough to understand what matters to your voters, because that's who you're representing.
And well, all I wanted to add to that, and in some of these smaller communities, just having a small business to open up. In my county, we just had a restaurant and grocery store combo have to close because they can't keep their doors open. Well, and in neighboring Polk County, they had to have a grocery store closed. We are seeing small businesses that we don't have enough of that are actually closing their doors.
And that creates food deserts, which is a major problem.
Does.
Yeah.
So we're having real crises in some of these lower counties along the Ohio River. So we are really having life and death situations that are coming to be because we are having food deserts. So what is realistic in some areas are detrimental in others.
Yeah.
If they close them in your county, the quickest grocery store would be where?
Well, outside of the state of Illinois.
Yep.
So hello.
Yeah.
I think we're doing a lot of good discussion on messaging and the things that Republicans need to talk about, the voters, etc. But what do Republicans need to do to win in Illinois? Fundraise. Sorry to be the party pooper here, but the Republican Party will not be able to compete if they continuously get outspent by the Democrats 12-1, 15-1. We're still going to get outspent. The Republican Party is always going to get outspent in the state. That's just how the things work. But if individual candidates, be it for county board, county-wide, state representative, whatever, can take the time to raise money on their own, it reduces the burden for organizations like SRO and HRO and all these other Republican organizations to put money into their race. So I think the number one thing the Republican Party needs to do to win in the state, raise some cheese and spend that cheese, because if not, all this good messaging discussion you guys are having is for naught.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair point, and I think about when I started in politics, our individual members did a lot more fundraising. This is one of those areas. I know Chris is going to love that I say what I'm about to say. I'm going to bash Runner, so you'll be happy. When we had Bruce Runner come to the party, a lot of people just got used to the fact that someone's going to cut me a check. I don't have to go out there and fundraise. Just like the Democrats now just rely on Pritzker's money and the union money. If you look at the individual reports, individual Republican candidates raise way more than individual Democratic candidates. The Democrats get the union cash and Pritzker's money, and that's how they blow us out the water. But we are finally seeing improvement and movement for our local candidates. I know even Schmidt, every quarter, the last couple quarters, Kevin Schmidt has upped his fundraising numbers. And yeah, it's from almost nothing to 3-4 times that, but it's improvement. It's growing, and we haven't seen that movement. And I think it's just been the last couple years where that message is starting to carry, but obviously November's coming soon, so we're going to have to really hustle on this. All right.
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, if you want to go talk about Kevin Schmidt, I mean, that's a great district for fundraising. There's a lot of business owners in that district. Kevin comes from a family that has some businesses in the area. You know, one of the greatest things I saw last time around was towards the end of the campaign. So this would have been, help me, Mike, I think it was 2022, right? That's when he beat LaToya. Towards the end, that's when the Ameren rate increase took place. All right, I don't think it was a rate increase. I think it was like a delivery surcharge or something, or something like that. Or maybe I have it backwards. Maybe it was a rate increase and not on the delivery.
But 2024, and then they passed that bill in Springfield that ended up, really jacking up the prices. I can't remember what the bill was called, but
it was like in October of 2022.
Right.
Everybody got really high Ameren bills. The bills like doubled.
Yeah.
And Kevin went out and he took plywood, 4x8 plywood boards, and he advertised that, thank LaToya Greenwood for your Ameren bills going up.
That's brilliant. I love it.
It was great, and everybody was kind of laughing at it. I actually think that's what pushed him over the edge in some of the communities like Millstadt and Smithton and Freeburg. I think that was brilliant of him, and that is a example of messaging, a candidate knowing when to pull that trigger on that message.
All right, so we've started a new segment in year 2 of our podcast called the Song of the Week. So this topic's our topic of the week. We're going to do a song of the week. Chris loves this because he loves fun. Look at him. He's so happy about this. So we've got an AI generator that literally does it all. I type in a few words. I put in there a song about how Illinois Republicans will win in November because we have the best candidates, we work the hardest, and we're right on the issues that working families care about. And it spat out this. So let's see what we think. Chris will hate it, but I'm curious on what everyone else will think. So we'll play it here so you guys can hear it. Lane will bring it up in post so the audio is better for everybody else. Let's see what it made for us.
We're on a mission, Illinois Republicans. Listen, pay attention. We got the best candidates, ain't no competition. Working hard, day and night, that's our tradition. From the windy city streets to small town pride, we come together, side by side, fighting for the issues that working families hold dear. We won't back down, we won't live in fear. We're the champions, we're gonna rise. Illinois Republicans, reach for the skies. With hard work, passion, we'll make it through. In November, watch what we're gonna do.
It keeps going, but we'll stop it there. Not bad for an AI-generated song.
Yeah. It's pretty good. You need to start singing that, Rhonda.
I had one that's not AI generated that I could let you use. It's called All Fired Up.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard it.
And it would go real good with you.
But I have to ask, I mean, this is, for the musical genius of the group. I mean, she says not bad. All right.
That means she doesn't like it.
Yeah,
Well, most songwriters are, I don't know, they have mixed feelings about AI generated.
I know. But considering I'm not musical at all, it's the only chance I have to do
that's
something
not
musical.
Bad. It really isn't bad. I've never really dealt with the AI.
Yeah. I think for a song, motivational song about how we're going to do good in November.
Yes, it is.
Chris, you want to rain on our parade?
Collin, one day AI is going to take away your job of writing messaging for all of our clients.
And then I get to spend all that time with my cute little teddy boy. I'm fine with that. I don't want to work. I'm good with
Taking
it.
away jobs from working families, working musicians, working messengers. That's what AI is going to give you, gentlemen.
But it gives us great songs, so I'm fine
And that
with
is going to be one of our segments in our breakout sessions. So you might want to set in on that. It's going to be in regards to AI.
it. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And then we're going to have several breakout. You guys are going to do some breakout
Yeah, we got a bunch
sessions.
of stuff going on.
And
yeah.
Jonathan will have a session as well. I'd like for you to mention what you're going to be speaking about during the convention as well.
Yeah, John Ackerman, the Tazewell County Clerk, and I are going to be putting on the Working with Your County Clerk
Nice.
session.
Nice.
Try to answer questions for precinct committeemen and volunteers on how to deal with the county clerk in the upcoming election cycle.
I like it. All right, well, we had some fun. Chris doesn't like fun, but at least we got to have some fun. Rhonda didn't really fully approve, so I don't know. We have to do some work. But, all right. I know, the speaker here is not great. We're working on a budget. What can you say? All right, let's get back on track. We're going to cover two topics. Talk about hold districts and pickup districts. So the first topic here is hold districts. Of course, we have to start with Kevin Schmidt, House District 114. That's the main one in this region. That's going to be one of the biggest fights in the whole state, let alone just here. But this is a general topic. If you get another district you want to talk about that's a hold that matters to you, we can talk about it here. Can Republicans hold these seats? Start with Kevin Schmidt, and maybe I'll start with you. It's going to be a what, $5+ million race. This thing is going to be massive. Can we hold that seat? Are we going to pull that off?
Yeah, I believe we can. You know, Kevin Schmidt, that was the big surprise, really, of the last election cycle. I mean, that was the only pickup we had in the House. He won by 2,000 votes. It was about 6 points. So it wasn't like, it was close, but not super close. And I think Kevin surprised a lot of people with that victory, but I think he's also surprised people at how good of a state rep he's been. He's really out working. He's meeting with people, you know, constituents and organizations all throughout his district. He's probably one of the hardest working state reps that we have. That's what it takes, like we talked about earlier. It's just convincing those people that they made the right decision in 2024, and they need to, you know, continue to vote the same way on this race. So I think we have a real good shot.
Nice. It's a big race. Obviously, if you have thoughts on that race, feel free to share. But there's other races we got to hold. So bring up your race.
I think with Kevin Schmidt, in 2022, I said that if Kevin didn't win in 2022, he would win in 2024. I think the votes are there in 2024 for him to retain it. The Republicans are going to have to decide if they're going to spend money to defend it. I haven't heard the $5 million number.
Maybe it's high. Maybe it's more like 2 or 3, but it's going to be an expensive
It's probably
race.
pretty high. I don't know how much the Democrats are. I think if Kevin comes out strong and he does exactly what he did in 2022, I would not be surprised if they take their money and go somewhere else. They've got to defend Katie Stewart. You know, there's some other races throughout the state that I can't think of off the top of my head right now, but you know, there's you know, there's going to come a point where they're going to look at that district and they're going to have to decide whether or not they can compete in it anymore. They took away so many Democrat votes in order to secure Jay Hoffman's district that they I mean,
The rarely honorable Hoffman.
Yeah, I don't know if they have enough left. I think they took too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about it when they did that redistricting, when they did the map. They were cocky. They looked at their most favorable elections under Trump, which, yeah, we struggled in some of those presidential elections under Trump. And they used that as the basis of their maps. And we said immediately when we saw that that's not going to hold. By the end of this decade, they're going to be seriously regretting it in some of these districts, and Schmitz is one of those districts.
Yeah.
There's a number of other races. I'm just looking at the list here of holds. We've got to hold 104 with Brandon Schweitzer, newly appointed, so he's going to be new to that district and Mike Marin's old district. That's going to be a tough one to hold. Democrats are coming hard for that. They're coming hard against Amy Grant in 47 up in the northern suburbs. You know, some of these other districts, Dems are going to play hard for. I know McLaughlin in 52 we've talked about. So we've got some hold districts that we can't pick up ground if we don't hold our current seats. So we got some tough races. We're going to make sure we draw a line and say we ain't losing these seats. I
think the 112th is a good example of the Republicans. That district, it's not. I would say maybe center right. That's a great example of a district. If the Republicans can win there, that is at least we're going in the right direction to take back or maybe crawl out of super minority status into minority status. I think the 112th, though, I'm watching that because I want to see what happens, and I think that's a good indicator for what the future's like.
Yeah. All right, pickups, or you want to talk holds still?
One thing I'll talk about with Kevin Schmidt, constituent service is a huge factor in that race. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who've said when they've reached out to LaToya Greenwood's office, either the phone had been disconnected, they go on the website, it bounces back. Kevin Schmidt does a great job with constituent service, and he had great teachers, and Charlie Meyer and Amy Ellick. So I think that's a big factor in that race as well, that plays to his advantage.
And let's be honest, that we've been teaching that for a long time, but our candidates haven't been great at it. I remember 6-8 years ago, when we came down and did a presentation to one of the caucuses, we were telling them, hey, you should be doing this, this, and this. And they could pull this aside like, wait, we can't even do that. We don't have an email list. How do we set up an email program? These were sitting incumbent Republican legislators. I'm like, how are you not sending weekly newsletters? They're a lot better now. So I don't mean to disparage today, but we started from so far behind. Meanwhile, Chris's God, Mike Madigan, I mean, he taught his people that it's all about constituent services. Your election season's a few months before Election Day. And then you have the whole rest of that 2-year cycle or 4-year cycle if you're in the Senate. You get to campaign for free on the taxpayer's dime to lock in those votes. And Democrats were so good at that, and still up by us are very good at that, on campaigning the rest of the year. I just got a mail piece from my state rep just a couple days ago, my Democrat state rep, on all the things she's working on and how she's lowering taxes. And I'm like, no, she's not. This is ridiculous. But you get that chance, and it's through constituent services and being out in the community, sponsoring the Little League baseball team and getting your logo out there, your name out there, just be visible in the community. Schmidt's great at that, and we got to definitely take advantage of those opportunities as incumbents. All right, on the pickup side, I know everybody wants to talk about 112, so we've already kind of gave that sign that we're going to talk about 112. That's going to be one of the biggest pickup opportunities for Republicans. There's a lot of them on this list of great opportunities for Republicans for seats to pick up. Why don't we kick us off with 112? We can talk about some of the others too. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
knocking out Katie Stewart, I know, is a big focus down here.
Absolutely, it is. So Katie Stewart, she's one of the most radical members in the General Assembly, and she kind of tries to fly under the radar with some of that stuff, or has in the past. But I think lately, she's been more out and open about that, and she's definitely not in line with the voters in that district. If you went down, some of her proudest accomplishments, they're not going to go over very well on a voter's doorstep. But we have a great candidate, Jay Keevan, former state trooper, former police chief in Edwardsville, and we saw how scared and nervous the Democrats are based on the stunt that they tried to pull at the beginning of this month. But we were able to get the signatures, get them on the ballot, and a lot of people are excited about that race.
Well, and it was one of those that was not on people's radar other than you guys locally, and you guys kept screaming, this is a district we can take, this is a district we can take. And I don't know statewide that people took it seriously until recently, but people are looking at these numbers. Trump only lost the district by 6. Some of these districts we're looking to pick up, Trump lost by 10, by 15, and this is not a district where Trump kills us. And locally, you look at the local races, it splits. It's R barely over R, but it's not a D district at all.
And actually, Collin, if you look at the numbers further, I believe Trump actually won the district the first time around in 2016. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities for maybe in 2024 Trump is going to improve on that 6-point loss from 2020. Maybe Trump loses it by 3, and if you can have a Republican candidate overperform that by 3, now you're in winning territory. I think this is a very good pickup opportunity for Republicans. The unfortunate part about all of this is we were just talking about holds in the last part of this discussion. There are a lot more holds in this state for the Republican Party in the House this cycle than there are pickup opportunities. That's just how math works. That's just an unfortunate reality of this state right now. So the hope is that Jay Keevan, you guys down here, your wonderful Republican organizations, can build something independent of any other Republican state representative trying to hold their seat in the rest of the state, so that you're running your own campaign and you're not only relying on the rest of the state's Republican Party apparatus to bring you guys over the finish line. You guys have done a great job of it so far. Let's continue that momentum in 2024.
I just point out with the 112th, it's been plagued with a lot of issues since Katie was elected. We had a couple primaries that didn't go the way that we thought they were going to go. It kind of went sideways a little bit, back and forth. This time around, though, I think everybody's, coalesced around the candidate, and the local Republicans are all backing him 100%, 110%. So that changes the dynamic for Katie.
There's more unity in 112 specifically
Absolutely.
than we've seen in probably 3 election cycles.
I think Katie's probably nervous right now. because
you
it's
know
going to
they're
be a tough
nervous.
race.
As she should be. I mean, she can try to be a moderate all she wants, but look at some of the radical things she's done. Feminine hygiene products in male bathrooms at SIUE, transgender bathrooms in Edwardsville. You know this area. That doesn't fly too well with them. So she could try to be a moderate all she wants, but the voters are waking up.
Well, Democrats are great at that, right? During election season, they're fiscal conservatives. They tell you how they're cutting costs and lowering taxes, but the rest of the year, they're as far left progressive as they come. And it's about, Chris said it, right? We need to have the money to push that message, because they're going to be on TV for 6 months straight or 4 months straight saying, look how conservative we are, which it's a lie, but unless we can call them out on that lie, voters might believe it. There's other districts. If you look at some of these districts on the map of opportunities for us, up in the northern Illinois, you got 45, where it's an open seat. We got Dennis Arbeletti running that seat, a great candidate in a great district that, frankly, is a Republican district. It's R+3 if you look at the local races. 51, Tasi Ufadike, that's an R6 district. Trump does badly in that district, unfortunately, but the district itself is pretty Republican, and she's working her butt off. Every day there's another photo of her knocking on doors. She's working her tail off in that race. There's a lot of districts. I'm looking through this list. 66, we got a great chance on. I know Liz Bishop is going to be here, I think. 76, we got a great chance to take that seat back. Yednock was the Democrat there. He was more moderate. Now the candidate they're running this time is way more progressive. There's a lot of districts on this list. I don't know if I'd agree with you, Chris. I think we got more pickup opportunities than hold opportunities. Republicans got a lot of great districts here we can play in. Any other races you guys have heard of that you want to talk about, or is it really just 112 all the way?
I'll mention the 13th Congressional District.
There you go.
You know, same thing with Katie Stewart with Nikki Budzinski. She can try to be a moderate all she wants, but look at her voting record. She voted against blocking Biden's 87,000 IRS agents. She voted against bill after bill that working families support and agree with. And we have a great candidate in Josh Lloyd. And, you know, I know myself and Congressman Bost, we're going to do everything we can to help him succeed, as well as the 17th District with Joe McGraw.
Yep.
So on the congressional level, we do have some good pickup opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, the 17th for congressional is a great opportunity for us. I mean, I'm just looking at these numbers. Trump only lost that district by 8. It's a working class district. You go out to that Rockford area and you tell them, and then the Western Illinois, like Northwestern Illinois area, and you tell them all the things that these guys are voting on out in D.C., they're not in alignment with the Joe Biden agenda at all. McGraw's a great candidate, so the 17th could be a great pickup opportunity for us as well.
I think Sorensen's shine is kind of worn off from him being a new member of Congress. I think if in an ideal scenario, what would happen here is that the Illinois Republican Party would focus all of their federal resources on the 17th and say, this is our biggest pickup opportunity this cycle. We're going to make it our goal to flip the 17th Congressional District and get some actual, help from D.C. Because the problem right now is that D.C. doesn't take Illinois seriously. They don't. Because, they look at, Illinois, they see every year people talk about these districts in Illinois. They're the number one pickup opportunities in the state or in the country. And then they invest the money and nothing ever happens. So I think the Illinois Republican Party needs to kind of refocus on, trying to, build back its image with the D.C. crowd, the NRCC and all those types of organizations. The 17th is the district to do it in this cycle. There are some other interesting opportunities in the 14th and the 13th, like Myles said. But I think the 17th is very interesting.
I think you look at 11 and 6 even, there's some opportunities there too, but you're right, we got to crawl before we can walk. If we can't win 17, we're not going to win 13, we're not going to win 11 or 6. So it's a matter of, let's get the gains where we can get them. And you're right, I mean, the more that these Democrats get in office, you give them time, they show their true colors. I mean, Eric Sorensen gets in office, now he's doing drag shows for kids at libraries. I mean, it's just, you give these people a chance to show their true colors, and suddenly you see how far left progressive these moderate Democrats actually are.
And I would also say, I mean, you guys know, especially up in your region, that a lot of times, like, DC and some of these national groups are like, oh, you've got no chance, you've got no chance, you've got no chance. And then 4 weeks, 3 weeks before Election Day, they're like, oh, wait, we could actually win this. Like, let's actually do something.
Yeah.
So we have to be, like, start on good footing and just be pushing as hard as we possibly can, because you never know when the dynamics are going to change. And maybe there's a district where you thought, hey, we didn't have an opportunity here, and then at the last minute things shift. So we have to be prepared for those kind of things to happen locally. That way, when the RNC comes in, 3 weeks out, and they're like, hey, we got some money. What do we need to do? Like we're like, hey, this is exactly what you need to do, and we have to be prepared for that.
Well, you never know. I mean, you might get a state Senate 19 situation where the incumbent suddenly allegedly becomes a wife beater, and suddenly now the 19th district is in play. So you're right. We got to be ready for those opportunities because the landscape changes a lot in the coming months. All right. Any other races you guys want to talk about before we get into some of the other topics here? All right, so let's talk about this. One topic about today or this weekend, Republican Party is going to be electing a new state or a new national committeeman and committeewoman at the convention. There's races for both. I know very little about what the heck is happening here, but we've got state central committee members and deputy state central committee members here. So really just open it up to you guys. It sounds like we've got, I think, 3 candidates for each of the openings. What are you guys hearing? Anything you want to talk about with those races? I think we're making that choice on Saturday, right? So. This is steaming towards the end. What's going on with those races?
Well, I'll gladly say that Rhonda Belford is running, and I am going to proudly vote for her to be our next national committee woman. There are 3 great people running for committeeman and committeewoman, and I hope that they don't view this as running against each other because they're all great. But as far as the national committee women go, I am proudly supporting Rhonda Belford. Joan Lassonde is also running, as well as Julie Cho, yes. I believe. On the committee man side, you have Vince Colbert, Dean White, and Mark Shaw. I pledge my support to Mark Shaw. I think he would be great. But again, just I think great quality candidates all around to replace Richard Porter and Demetra, who have been wonderful.
Well, I know on the committee woman side, I mean, obviously I'm biased, Rhonda, you're always my favorite. Well, but you mentioned we've got good candidates. I mean, even Joan Lassonde, even if she doesn't get that role, I mean, she's working her tail off. I like that message of we've got 6 people who care enough. This is a volunteer job where you guys have to pay out of your pocket to do this.
Yes.
Now your husband's over there like probably shaking his head. Thinking, oh I mean, this is at great cost to the people who are going to take these roles, and you're willing to step up and do that. I'm really grateful to all 6 who put their name forward. They are truly great candidates. Of course, on the committee woman's side, I think all of us are going to have a clear favorite. But
and what do? We look for to busy people to try to get jobs done, or if you want to get something done. And of course, I just felt like it was time. As Richard and Demetra are term limited. That's the reason that they're not running again, and that's how our bylaws were written for the State Central Committee, and so that's why they aren't running this time. So there are a lot of states that may not have term limits in that regard. So there are a few states that do have that. So that's why the situation has come about. And so with careful thought, and it's not about running against anyone in particular. It's about running for something, which we believe in Illinois, just like Michael said. If we're not ready when the time comes, why would Washington, NRCC, anybody else want to help us if we're not willing to help ourselves? So that's really what that's about.
Well, I would just say unsolicited advice. If you're running for committee person spot, maybe don't promote a endorsement from Michael Lindell as a key endorsement for that you want that job. I won't say the name because I'm not looking to attack the individual. I like him, but let's be smart about who we roll out there.
And that's an important part. You are campaigning for 17 people. Voters don't get to vote on this. It's the state central committeemen who appoint people to that committee. And those are the 17 people who decide that.
No, we had a state central committee member, Aaron Del Mar, on a couple weeks ago, and he said the same thing. You could do all these grand endorsements, these big things, but these positions are picked by the party leaders because they know who's going to be the best to represent our party nationally, and that's who your audience is.
And honestly, it is a grassroots effort because your PCs are the ones who actually pick the state central folks, and it is a bottom-up approach because they pick the state central committee leaders, put them in place, which in turn seats these people, then in turn who selects these people in committee who become your national committee folks, who then in turn represent us at the RNC level. So it is really a grassroots, a bottom-up approach, so which is very, very important, and it's a great honor.
Well, we're going to get into some of the issues in our agenda. I want to say for our viewers, we had to get started late because of timing, and I know, Myles, you're probably going to have to go before we can finish up the episode, so don't feel bad if you do need to step out. I know you got a few things you got to get to, but we're going to keep going along, and if you guys see him leave, it's not because we angered him, it's just because he's got to get going to something. But let's get into a couple quick topics on issue-based, and I know it was mentioned. As we talked about previously on some of these episodes, the Democrats were so scared about Katie Stewart losing her seat that they tried to, they're the real threat to democracy in this state, they tried to change the rules in the middle of the election cycle to try to keep our candidate from being able to slate and run. And just, yesterday, the day before, or recently this week, a judge stepped in and said, heck no, you can't do that, and put a restraining order on that. So it's still going to play out in the courts, but looks like temporarily at least, the judge has stepped up and said, hey guys, this isn't how democracy works, you can't do this. So curious what you're hearing about this, and obviously it's good news for our Republican candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. So they put a stay on that. I think that runs through June 3rd, I believe, which is also the deadline to file petitions. So I know there's some candidates around the state that were, considering running for state rep or state senate in some of these open districts. So that'll kind of open it up to where they have an opportunity to file those petitions, get on the ballot. But my understanding is that the judge was kind of hinting at the fact that, hey, this is not kosher, it's not up to par, and that this may ultimately end up getting reversed. So the Democrats tried pulling this stunt. They were protecting democracy by undermining it.
Yeah.
And
J.B. Pritzker calling this an ethics bill. I mean, he likes to pretend like he's for good government and he's all moderate and wants to do the best thing for the voters. But this was I've heard from some of my Democrat friends who won't go on the record, obviously, but they're like, listen, this is one of the most blatant political stunts we've ever seen pulled, and that's saying something for this state.
Well, also, I mean, they specifically targeted state rep and state senate races. You're still able to slate for any other office. And here locally, it was pretty funny that a couple days after this bill passed, the Madison County Democrats announced that they were slating candidates for county board and some of those local offices, and how proud they were, and we're going to make sure that nobody's unopposed. We're going to be slating all summer, and it's like, well, I thought you guys said this was, an affront to democracy. Like, they sure are proud to take advantage of the process.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this with redistricting. We've seen it with, something we have to change the Supreme Court maps because Republicans are actually making gains in the Supreme Court. They will change the rules whenever it benefits them to change the rules. As much as they like to pretend like they're out to protect democracy, when the moment it benefits them, they're going to change the rules.
So I have 2 points on this. The first one, I'm not a lawyer, I just play one on TV. But I think that there is a decent chance this bill will get upheld, at least for future elections. Yeah. This one, I think what the court might do is say, you guys passed this at the wrong time. This is a blatant, you can't do this. You were already in an election cycle. You can't change it for this election cycle. But the bill might stand for future elections, which, while it would suck, I think everybody in this conversation and in the state would be a little bit more eager to accept, because we would know what we were getting into for future elections. But the second thing is, even though there's been an injunction or it's suspended, whatever it might be, I'm not sure of the specific legal jargon, again, not a lawyer, what this did was, it took him a while to put a hold on this. So a lot of candidates who were slated for a state representative position kind of gave up. I mean, even if they didn't give up, they weren't pushing as hard to get their petitions as they were previous, because they passed this bill, I don't know if I'm going to get on. It's a subconscious thing. It's a psychological thing. They weren't enthusiastic anymore. So I still think you're not going to see as many people file for state representative to be after being slated on June 3rd, just because of the psychological effect of this bill. Of people just weren't ready, didn't want to be circulated anymore.
No, that's an interesting point. We'll have to see. I mean, a filing is, a couple weeks from now? So we're going to know in a couple weeks.
June 3rd, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's obviously the Democrats like to say their number one issue is threats to democracy and how Republicans and Trump are a threat to democracy. Then they pull this crap. I mean, it's blatant. Anyways, the date, it's all right. We're good. The date doesn't matter as much, but we'll get it later. All right, let's move on, because this is, usually in this episode, we'd be talking about Springfield. Anybody who pays attention to politics knows the legislators are right now in Springfield. As a matter of fact, that's why some of them can't be here to join us on this podcast because they are steaming towards the end of session. And usually we'd have a bunch of topics about session, and we'll save that for next week. So we're going to have a big episode next week about what's going on in Springfield. But there's a couple things we've got to talk about. And right now, Democrats and J.B. Pritzker are twisting arms trying to get these Democrats to support his tax hikes. He's got over $1 billion in tax hikes he's trying to push on voters in the state. And as we've talked about, these aren't taxes on the rich. One of the biggest tax hikes he's pushing is lowering what the standard exemption ought to be for tax filers. And so by lowering that, you're hitting every tax filer in this state who files with a standard exemption, which isn't the wealthy. The wealthy itemize. It's the working class, it's the lower income. They're the ones taking advantage of the standard exemption, and that's one of the hikes that Pritzker is putting through in this budget. Over $1 billion on the people of the state, the working families of this state. And Democrats, rightfully so, in Springfield, are nervous. They don't want to support these tax hikes in an election year, and so they're twisting arms. And it's just come out this week that Democrats are trying to give out pork money to their members, try to get them to vote for this, up to $3 million per member. Vote for this, and we'll give you up to $3 million to spend in your district. I mean, it's blatant, but I think it's telling that you've got even Democrats in Springfield who are like, wait a second, why are we raising taxes on working families right now? So the fight is going on right now as you guys watch this episode. We'll see how it plays out, but they're struggling to balance the budget because the COVID money, the net federal money is running out. And so the narrative that this budget has been balanced because we've been fiscally responsible has been broken, and now they have to actually tell the truth, which is we can't pay our bills unless we raise taxes on working families in this state. So curious what you guys are hearing about the budget and about Pritzker trying to get these people to support his tax hikes.
Well, I think it's crazy that like the logic just isn't there, where it's like, okay, like we are short on money, we need to raise taxes. And then people come back and say, hey, I don't think it's a good idea to raise the taxes. So he says, well, if you raise taxes, then I'll spend money on all these new programs. It's like, well, I thought you said we didn't have enough money. Like, I thought this tax increase was supposed to, help take care of the existing programs. Well, now they're going to add more programs on top of it. So it's just this constant cycle of like, hey, we're going to raise your taxes so we have more money, but then we're spending more money than we're bringing in, so then we need to raise it again. And it's like, I mean, we talked about it, the cost of living. That's one of the, things that is really stressing out people all across the state. They can't afford a tax increase. So,
well, and Pritzker's increased spending in the state. Since he's been governor, he's increased spending roughly 40%. I just did the math in my head, so it might be off a couple percent, but it's a significant increase in spending in 6 years that he's jacked up spending in the state, and now suddenly the bill's coming due. Any thoughts on this, on the budget, on Pritzker's tax hikes, and how Democrats are going to yet again raise taxes, and yet they're going to pretend to the voters like they're fiscally responsible?
I've been watching a little bit of the Tier 2 conversation. I don't know if you guys remember, about a month ago, ASME had members calling into the state, the safe harbor exemption for Social Security. I've been kind of watching that. It's interesting hearing some of the conversation of how maybe by 2040 we may have a plan in place to fix some pension debt, and that really that's kind of what I've been focusing on is to see how does the state legislature deal with that Tier 2 issue. I'm worried that they're going to go too far and change Tier 2 to the point where now we're just going to dig a deeper hole. So I've been watching that a little bit. I've been watching the tax, even though the conversation about tax increases is kind of it's all over the place, like you were saying. Even Democrats are nervous about it. And the County Clerks Association, we've been approached with some ideas of some cost saving when it comes to elections, and we've been trying to cooperate with the governor when it comes to coming up with ideas of how we could do that. And so we'll see what happens. Though nobody has seen a budget, though. As of right now, yep. I'm not aware that a budget has actually been presented. The budgeteers are all behind closed doors.
Yeah, we're recording this on Thursday, and you're right. There's no budget that we've seen.
Thursday
as
at 6:30. Yeah. I'm not aware it's been released, and and we're also watching the BEMP also, as well, to see what comes out in that. But you need a budget before you can implement it. So. Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. I don't know if any of our legislators are going to make it to the convention this
they've been told to be prepared to be there all weekend. So
right.
So Memorial Day weekend, they're basically going to hold them hostage and say, vote for my tax hikes, and then you get to go home and see your family. Yeah. It's just part of their strategy, right? I mean, but again, even we talked about how far left the Democratic caucuses in Springfield have become, and even they're balking at raising taxes. That's the point here. This isn't a moderate caucus that's saying, ooh, we're afraid of this. The Democratic Party in the state is significantly far left, and even they are saying this is too much. It tells you something. All right, a couple more things here as we wind down. We got to talk about the top 3 issues for voters right now. So that's cost of living. Next issue for voters right now is immigration. We've talked about it a lot, but in our latest polling, it showed that for the voters of Illinois, immigration has taken that top spot as their top issue. And you're seeing it all over, you're hearing it all over. Just curious what you guys are seeing on that issue. I know it's really lit on fire as people get frustrated with what they see with the migrant crisis. They get frustrated with what they see about the money that's being spent to support those who are non-citizens when it's not being spent to support our actual citizens when it comes to health care and other things. This is a challenge for working families when they see the priorities of Democrats are non-citizens over people who can't pay their bills, the Illinoisans who can't pay their bills.
So immigration is impacting Monroe County. I don't know about your counties, but we have had illegals who are in Monroe County committing crimes. It has happened. Our state's attorneys and sheriffs are not allowed to report illegals because of state law. So we're not, they come into the county, they burglarize a barn, or they carjack or steal a car or something, and you can't turn them into the federal government until they've been, prosecuted, and there's been a conviction. And we've had, I believe, 3 cases already. And so immigration is impacting people in a small little county like Monroe, and I hear it's hitting St. Clair County, Madison County. So I'm starting to hear more and more of it from that standpoint. It used to be you turned on the news and you saw it on the news, and it's not that way anymore in my community. I'm curious to see how that flows. How do other counties start to experience the same thing?
Well, that's the big change here. I mean, immigration was always the top issue in Republican primaries. What's new is that it's carrying now to swing voters. It's carrying to moderates, to independents who didn't care as much about it as of 1 or 2 years ago. But to your point, now that they're seeing it, they're realizing this is actually an issue in my community. This isn't just something I watch on TV that's just happening in Chicago. This is real for the whole state. And now suddenly they care.
Yeah. Now I've heard some other arguments though. I mean, we're an agriculture community. We do rely on immigration for those types of jobs. And right now, with how tight the labor market is right now, there's arguments being made by some business groups that hey, we need to come up with ways of being able to allow more immigrants to come into the country legally, create more legal ways of being able to make that happen. So we have to be clear: illegal coming into the country, not following the rules, we are against. Coming up with ways that we can have more legal immigration. I think we're going to probably get more Republicans who are going to support that narrative.
And we've had that process. In Southern Illinois, you have peaches, you have apples,
right?
And it is a process of obtaining a work permit.
Correct.
But to your point, every state's a border state. Every county is a border county now. And whether I'm in Central Illinois, Southern Illinois, everyone I talk to, their top issue is the border. And I think it's because it's so drastic how quickly we went from America first to America last. It's like whiplash. So we had a very secure border under President Trump, and then Biden comes in with his executive orders, and he could fix it, but he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Well, and the problem, I'm running into, I have a gentleman in my own county who's married to a young lady in another country, and they're trying to abide by and do the proper things, and it's taking forever. And then, of course, then you've got folks that are abusing the system, and it just seems so unfair.
Well, and that's what frustrates people so much, is
part.
the ones who try to follow the rules, and then they see all the benefits being given to those who didn't necessarily follow those rules. Or, let's be honest, I mean, migrants have followed the rules. You may not like the rules they're following, but they have followed those rules to come to this country seeking asylum. But it's a matter of priorities. You've got communities that have felt like there's been disinvestment in their communities for decades, and they're seeing this money being spent on people who just got here. And you've got, let's talk about Chicago. You've got black wards. You've got people who say, wait a second, you're rushing to provide funding to these people who just got here. We've been begging you for decades.
recognizing that I'm a stranger in a strange land right now, and respecting my privilege, of course, I'm a little bit concerned over the argumentation that there is a necessity for more immigration in order to help on like farms and things like that, or to provide jobs, because that's kind of the messaging that lost Republicans a lot of elections. 20 years ago, the Democratic Party had a messaging of, American jobs for American workers. That was part of, Obama 2008 that helped him win in a lot of places. So I'm concerned in some degree that, respecting the fact that I'm not a farmer and I don't understand the ins and outs of farming, I would like to, see, farming jobs go for, American farmers and workers and things like that. But to the point about African Americans, they're having the same, issue, and that's why they're moving to the right on the immigration issue, is because they're seeing more and more migrants come in, legal, illegal, what have you, and they're thinking, well, that's something I want for my community. We want these jobs. We want this funding. We want this help that the government's giving to undocumented and migrants and all these things. So I think that same mentality stretches itself around multiple different groups, even legal immigrants, legal Hispanics who are here and who went through the process and don't get the same benefits that illegals and migrants are getting today. So I think we have to think about it through that lens. And if we keep thinking about things through this purely like libertarian capitalist end of, we're just providing cheap labor, we're not going to win elections.
Fair point.
Well, and I was also going to say there's a Senate bill. It's Senate Bill 2978 that was just filed this week. It was an existing bill that they amended like they always do with the shell bill stuff. But 2978 would prohibit the Secretary of State's office from cooperating with federal and local law enforcement when it comes to enforcing our immigration laws. So they wouldn't be able to provide, if you had somebody that was here illegally that went to the DMV and got a driver's license, obviously there's a photo, there's an address, there's social security number, which they wouldn't have in that instance. But they would not be able to cooperate with ICE or federal law enforcement agencies on if the point is to enforce immigration law. So we have this crisis at the southern border. We have all of these people that are in Illinois that are here illegally, and they're trying to make it harder for that to be enforced.
Well, the Senate Republicans in Illinois have done a great job messaging this issue specifically, and just calling out that, Pritzker likes to say that he didn't create this migrant crisis, he didn't cause this problem, but the more they're making Illinois the sanctuary state on purpose, the more you're saying to the world, come here, we want you here. That's what he's trying to say. This crisis, this immigration issue we have in the state, the Pritzker and the Democrats have brought this to this state. They can't pretend they didn't break it and now they don't own it.
Well, they had all that rhetoric about how proud we were to be a sanctuary state and
Chicago's
a sanctuary city. Then everybody shows up and they're like, well, it's not our problem. And, obviously, Joe Biden is a big driver of all of this. And I'm pretty sure that J.B. Pritzker probably has his personal cell phone. And if he wanted to do something about this, he could call him and say, hey, we need to do something here. But he's not doing that.
One other point about the border issue, all the drugs that are coming in. Our county is actively, Myles is aware of this, Monroe County, we actively patrol some of the interstates that are running through southern Illinois. And there is, I can tell you right now, there is a lot of meth and there is a lot of fentanyl that is coming through southern Illinois.
Fentanyl's a huge problem in the suburbs.
Absolutely, yeah. And that is coming across the border. I can tell 100% it's coming from the fact that we do not have a secure southern border. That is destroying families. That's destroying our economy. That's taking an entire generation of young people and middle-aged people too, and putting them in a really bad spot. It's hurting it's damaging our country, irreparable damage.
Yeah, and that's definitely got to be part of our messaging on that. All right, steaming to the end. We mentioned it before. We got to talk about it since Michael brought it up. The narrative in this state. I guess my question just really is, how out of touch are Democrats in Illinois when it comes to the issue of crime? Just in this last week, you saw a bill in a small area of government, but this is emblematic, where they changed the word offender to justice-impacted individuals, which I even asked my wife about because she's all about criminal justice reform, and I asked her how she felt. She's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And there's people who are saying that's just in one area, but here's the thing, it's part of a broader narrative. Our buddy Joe Weiss, who was on one of these podcasts recently, reminded me that in Lake County, Eric Reinhart doesn't let his people use the word victims The state's attorney's office doesn't use the word victims because, well, I don't know what his reasoning for that. You see in Cook County, Kim Foxx is now talking about how she's not going to prosecute any gun cases that are tied to traffic stops. Just not going to do it, refuses to do it. Somebody who we're going to have on the podcast soon, hopefully, the state's attorney for McHenry County, who's stepping down, has been fighting a bill that's in Springfield right now where when a woman gives birth and there is controlled substances in her system that get passed to the child, right now the law is that the state's attorney has to be notified. There's a bill in Springfield to say, no, we're not even going to notify the state's attorney if a baby is born with opioids in their system. My wife told me, she's seen this, has seen kids who are born who have to go through, they're now going through withdrawal after they're born, and that their tiny little bodies are devastated by this. And that's why the state's attorney, Pat Keneally, is fighting this, because the way they want to do the law now is say, no, instead of telling the state's attorney, let's just let DCFS handle it, because they've got such a great track record in this state. There's this constant move of Democrats in this state to be pro-criminal and anti-victim, including when you have a just born child who's now a victim of these drugs being in their system, because the mother was still taking drugs while pregnant. Now, there's this movement now from Democrats in this state. It's been going on these last couple of years. And so, yeah, sure, it's a funny sort of roll your eyes kind of thing to see them change language from offender to justice-impacted individuals. But that's part of a broader move by the Democrats in this state to be pro-criminal and anti-victims in this state. And this is just one of many examples we have. How out of touch are the Democrats in this state on crime in general?
It's just, well, that's what just came to my mind. It's a turning a blind eye. They're just turning a blind eye. And my background is nursing, as a registered nurse, and helping, you know, people deliver and seeing those types of things. How could you do that to innocents? If they had to go in, if a Democrat had to go in, if somebody, you know, it's just like a dog or something turning them into their own vomit or whatever. They need to have to go in and actually go through and see really what they're doing. Maybe they wouldn't be able to turn a blind eye to that any longer. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you just AJ Friend up in McHenry County. You're going to tell Pat Keneally, who had to prosecute the parents of AJ, who killed AJ, this young boy, because DCFS was negligent, and came in and saw that house and saw feces and urine around the house, saw that the kid had been abused, and DCFS said, it's fine, leave him there. And the parents ended up killing him. That's what Keneally had to fight. So you're going to tell Pat Keneally, or anyone else with a brain, that no, DCF has got it, they're going to handle it. Not in this state. Maybe in other states, but they are not on top of things. You're going to take the state's attorney out of that equation. You're looking at just born babies, children, who are going to face the consequences because, you know, we got to be nicer to criminals.
And we do have an obligation, and I think that's something that the Republicans, we have to, you know, just like maybe your AI song would do, but it brings to mind that song, you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. And to me, that's what the Democrats are doing right now. They're falling for anything.
I was going to say on this issue, Elon Musk had it right. It's insane. That's the only way you can describe it. Yeah.
Well, they're stripping away like accountability, right? It's because like people aren't being prosecuted for the crimes that they commit at the level that they should, but then the ones that are being prosecuted, they're like, hey, let's coddle them a little bit. They're not offenders anymore. They're justice impacted individuals. You think about that phrase, like it's almost insinuating that like the justice system did something to them instead of them doing something to the justice system, right? It totally inverts
And
it.
listen, we are all for rehabilitation. You look at the stuff that Keneally has done in his county specifically to help rehabilitate these criminals and bring them into society and help them and support them. We're not against that support of these criminals, but it starts with accountability. It starts with, yes, I did something wrong, but I'm going to improve and I'm going to do better. Well, that's that first step. We're taking away that accountability and just saying, to your point, I think it's 100% accurate. You didn't do something wrong. The justice system came after you.
Yeah, and also, I mean, to kind of tie it back into the previous topic, I mean, you saw what happened with Joe Biden in his State of the Union where he, you know, called people illegal aliens, and he got all this pushback, and he came back and said, I'm sorry, I misspoke, I meant to call them new arrivals. It's the same thing. Like, these people have violated the law. They violated immigration law. They are criminals, and you need to call it like it is and stop this, like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm sorry that I offended you. Well, you know, they broke the law. They offended us. there's victims that they've offended. Like, these people need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
The good news is, or at least good news for Cook County residents, is that, you know, it seems like the tide is trending in the rightward direction in terms of the crime messaging within the Democratic Party. Even within the Democratic Party, there is a recognition that they cannot solely win on, like, this you know, criminal justice reform, you know, this Kim Foxx mentality when it comes to crime. And barring, you know, Bob Mentum and Fioretti wins the state's attorney's race in Cook County. You know, Eileen Burke's going to be a Democrat is going to be a breath of fresh air. And the hope is that something similar can happen in Lake County as well. You know, take out Eric Reinhardt's the guy's name,
well,
right?
Yeah. You
take out Reinhardt.
Got a great candidate, Mary Cole, up there.
So I think that the momentum's moving in the right's favor in terms of the crime messaging, and all it takes, even in Democratic primaries, and all it takes is some, you know, effective campaign to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, the Democratic Party in a primary ran Kim Foxx out and nominated somebody who is more, you know, a lot more
conservative.
I mean, I think she is, yeah. And you see, even Democratic primary voters, that wasn't general election voters that ran Kim Foxx out. So that's telling. All right, we are over our time, and thank you and everybody who stuck around. I know this was tough to make it work in your schedules. As always, we give our guests a chance to give closing thoughts on whatever the heck you want. So, Myles, kick us off. Anything you want to close down the podcast episode with?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for inviting me, and we are going to have a great weekend, and I hope that Republicans across the state can bring home some helpful tips on how to flip their counties. Have a good time in Collinsville and get a selfie with the world's largest ketchup bottle, like Chris is going to. Thanks for having me on.
I'm looking forward to it. I want to see
I'll take you there. I will.
See it. Thank you.
I want that photo. John.
Yeah, I just want to welcome everybody to the Metro East, and it's exciting that it's here. The convention is here in my backyard, and I think we're going to have a good time this weekend. So,
Rhonda, final thoughts from you?
Well, we are so pleased to have you here in the 12th and the 13th congressional districts. I'm going to claim the 12th. And we've been working so hard to pull this off, and we're glad everybody's here. So make the most of it. Go to rcca.gop/convention for a full itinerary. Lots of trainings, lots of networking. We're glad to be here with you all, kicking it off. As always, some of my favorite people in the whole wide world. So God bless you, and we're going to have a good time here in Collinsville. So for lots of more red wins.
Let's have Chris go. Michael should get the last word if we're in his region.
So if you're at the convention this weekend, getting some good old country comfort like old Chris here, be sure to stop by our booth. We're doing a straw poll for the governor's race, so that's going to be very exciting. If you want your preferred candidate to win our straw poll and have bragging rights, come by. If you see me or any of your other fellow political operatives at the convention, buy them a drink, bum them a smoke, flip them a zin, whatever you do to make our lives a little bit better this Memorial Day weekend. I and the rest of my operatives here will greatly appreciate it. Thank you, and God bless from the Metro East.
There you go. Sounds good. All right. Well, I would just say, you know, it's great to have everybody down here. It's kind of nice to flip the script a little bit because, you know, we're always complaining about having to drive up to Chicagoland, and now all the people from up north get to complain about driving down here. And we don't have a lot of sympathy for you, so don't push it too much. But no, it's good to have everybody here, and we're excited to be able to highlight some of the successes that we've had in this region, and hopefully, you know, we can pass some of our tips and tricks on to people in other counties, and we can kind of push this red wave all the way up to Chicago, or maybe at least close.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you to our watchers. Thank you to Lane and Ryan, who have jointly produced this on-the-road episode, always extra work. And catch us next week with session closing down. We'll have policy experts next week to talk about what just happened in Springfield. So you'll have stuff hot off the presses next week. So don't go anywhere. Get us next week in the smoke-filled room. Until then, let's get out there and get some wins.